Greetings, family. Two Hawks, Federation of Aboriginal Nations of America. Hope this evening is finding you well. In our language, Nahigansa people, we would say, Wuni Nakan ni Thump. Good evening, friend. So, got some solid feedback on the video I put out a couple weeks ago talking about American Indian status and in particular discussing the Indians not tax situation. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Norris over at Turtle Gang. For the very good visual work he did, helping to get the message out there a little bit. He definitely has a fantastic network, so helping to spread it out there, that's really greatly appreciated. Katapatush, thank you for that. And thank you to everyone else who took a moment to share or comment. Some people even reached out with some further questions. And I thought that it would be good if I followed up with that a little bit. I think in the first video that I shared, I was kind of speaking about the necessity of it. So I think this time I want to speak more to the logic of it. And I want to do this because in follow-up, there was tons of great and positive feedback to it, but there was a couple of individuals that had disagreements of opinion and things of that nature. And just for a little perspective on me, when I share these elements and when I speak about these matters, I try to speak very matter-of-factly and very directly. And I don't want anyone thinking that I'm trying to belittle them, talk down to them, disrespect them, any of that. But our people need to know what it is, not what we think it is, but what it is. So I respond very directly and very matter-of-factly, and had some interesting dialogues with a number of different individuals. And it led me to this point because I think that if people understand more so the logic behind what we're saying when we say that you have to move in this particular manner, then there'd be less debate and a little bit more action. And I really think that that's what our people are needing right now, action. We need to be acting on things that can impact and change our situations, as misclassified or whatever the case may be. But overall, just colonized. Colonization is roaring on, what, like the 50s or 60s or roaring 50s or whatever it was. I don't know, whatever. Colonization's still going. So I want to give you all 4 different perspectives on the logic behind what I proposed in the last video, and that is that you can reclassify, but that there are different statuses of American Indians. And there's different statuses of American Indians. So let me go into some of the logic, and I got 4. It may come into 5 as I get done talking, but let's talk 4. 4 reasons that are logical as to why connecting pre-colonially back to where you are from with your family is logical. It's logical, all right? So the first is that culturally it's traditional. So from a cultural perspective, to be getting back with your family, connecting with the lands where you're from, if that's who you say you are, culturally, that's very appropriate because we're tied to the land areas, right? That's where most of the names of the tribes come from, the people who are in particular lands. Nahigansa means people of the small point. Massachusetts, I believe it means people of the big hills or something like that. Names have meanings to them. So culturally, you tying back to where you're from, it allows you to then learn about the regalia that your people wore, the language that your people spoke, the foods, maybe there were specialty foods. I know up here in Narragansett territory, they have things that we call Johnny cakes. We do clam chowder as well. Corn, beans, and squash. They're a succotash. That's what we call it. There are different things that culturally are going to be very specific to you, that are going to differentiate you from other quote-unquote American Aborigine, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing for you to be differentiated. It's a good thing for you to be specific to where you're from and who your people were and how they conducted themselves. That's a good thing. being different isn't a bad thing. It's the attitude that you bring along with it. So when you're speaking from a cultural perspective, I don't want to see you claiming to be a Cherokee. And I know that's the misnomer, but I don't know how to pronounce it right. Anunyawe. Apologies if that's not the correct pronunciation. Someone please correct me in the comment section. But it makes no sense for you to be calling yourself that, dressed in a full Northern Plains style regalia with the big war bonnet and all that, when you're not a chief. Culturally, it doesn't make sense. That wasn't the culture of your people. So if you're claiming to be that, then your regalia, your ways, your traditions should reflect that from a cultural perspective. So when you tie back to your pre-colonial heritage and lineage and ancestral lands, culturally you get to learn about who your people were and are, so that you can reflect that in how you present yourself when you engage with other people. And it's a beautiful thing, right, to go to a powwow and be dancing and people to come and ask you, oh, so where are you from? And you get to engage that story with them, because your particular regalia, your particular traditions are going to be different from theirs. So there's an opportunity for communication and engagement when you know who you are. So this is why traditional, and I consider myself to be a traditional Indian. And once again, when I'm using the term Indian, it's an American Aborigine, but people know Indian. So when I consider myself to be a traditional Indian, right? So I don't want to see, I'm not trying to see you not being who you are. Now, that's not to say that you can't do new things. Let me be very clear. I'm not saying that being a traditional Indian, you can't do new things. We should share our culture. We should engage with other cultures. But we should do that being who we are. So I don't want to see someone claiming to be a Yamasee with a Lakota headdress on. I'm not trying to see that. I'm not trying to see that. Culturally, that's absurd. And it's embarrassing because it shows that you haven't taken the time or don't know about your culture, and instead of coming at it humbly and taking the time to learn and do it correctly, you're just deciding to do anything. So that don't fly. If you, from a cultural perspective, you doing anything because you're an Indian don't fly. It's not flying. You're never going to get it to fly. It doesn't matter if you were misclassified. It doesn't matter if you think you were full-blood Indian. If you're not getting your culture correctly, it's not flying. Don't expect to be respected. And if you don't know, it's fine. When I got on this journey, I made a few mistakes, but then I took the time to actually go and try to engage and learn. Learn, not come in rushing and telling everyone who I am and what happened, but just learn. And it's been over a decade and I'm still learning. So when you're talking culture, right, you don't need to rush your culture. You don't need to guess your culture. You can learn. But more importantly, you have to live that culture, right? So you can know, you can read in book, but you have to live that culture. In a lot of ways, the only way to live that culture is to be around people who know it. Now, I know it's rough out there. Some of the powwows, they're just plain ignorant, right? But if you just go and watch and learn, if you know those people don't like you, then don't talk to them. But go for the culture. Go to see the regalia. Go to hear the different types of songs. I guarantee you, if you're there and you just ask someone about the culture, they'll most likely tell you. Now, if you rush in there telling them that you're the first that, and well, you're causing conflict automatically. Automatically, you're causing conflict. And you're not going to get out of that what you really want, which is the understanding of the culture. So culturally, it's very appropriate to connect back to your pre-colonial status. Culturally, it's very appropriate. Now, the second point, historically, it's accurate to connect back to your pre-colonial heritage, right? Because look at that term pre-colonial. It means before colonization. So you can't be claiming to be a pre-colonial American Indian, Aborigine, but be not operating from the standpoint of being pre-colonial. You know? I am a Nahigansit from Meshipog. Why Nahigansit? Because my people don't have R's in our language, so I couldn't have been and can't be a Narragansett. You get it? Now, definitely the Narragansetts and Nahigansets, because it's all the same blood. But the terminology, we didn't have ours. So historically, if you're going to be a pre-colonial Indian, then you have to be historically accurate and be pre-colonial. And if what you are claiming to be a part of, what you're claiming to have citizenship from, did not exist here pre-colonially, then you are obviously colonized. So you're going to be a civilized Indian. And you can go and look up what that definition means, a civilized Indian. Go and look it up. So historically, from an historical standpoint, it is accurate for you to tie back to where you're from. And not only for you to tie back, right? Well, let me not touch on that yet. Let me not touch on that yet. I'm going to touch on that when I come back, but you'll see in point 4. But it is historically accurate to tie back to a pre-colonial heritage. Historically, if you go and look up the books and the research and all that, you're going to see that they wrote about certain people in certain areas and what they were doing. And if you're pre-colonial, you need to be able to identify yourself with that, substantiate that identification, which means that you have to first know about what was going on with your people pre-colonially, and that's going to tie back to where they were in the lands, right? So it all comes full circle. In order to be historically accurate, you have to tie back to your lands. You have to. If you're going to be pre-colonial, then you have to tie into your lands where people were at before colonization started. So it's historically accurate. When you're talking the terminology of a pre-colonial Indian not taxed, historically accurate to be able to substantiate that you are from this specific area and that this is what happened to your people. And the beautiful thing about it, and I've heard this mentioned by several people, is that colonization was arrogant enough to boast about it by writing it in books. Isn't that beautiful? They were so excited by what they were doing to our people that they wrote it in books, saved it in national archives, and PDF'd it and all of that craziness. Creator is wonderful. He works in mysterious ways, and pride is always comes before downfall, you know. So that's point 2. It is historically accurate to be tying back to where you're from and where your people are from and getting with your bloodline people if you're looking to be a pre-colonial Indian not taxed. Now 3. What's 3? Well, 3 is this. It is lawfully, because that's how we all got caught up in this, right? All of these quote-unquote laws that they made up, that they came throwing flags in people's lands and claiming it commercially and having no idea that that's even the system they're operating under. And now they're just running amok, you know? By law, if you're looking for that status, you have to tie back. You have to be able to look at what the language was that they utilized to define what that is, because we're not speaking our own languages. We're speaking English, all right? We're not English. We've been colonized by a European power that spoke English, but it's really the Anglos and the Saxons, right? You're not an Anglo, are you? Are you a Saxon? Okay, so this language that's being spoken is not our language, so we can't decide what we want the words to mean. We can't take it the way that we want to. We have to follow and look at what their laws say, and they are very, very clear and always articulate to make sure that the laws that they make are abiding by their laws. You know, they don't have loopholes and all that, but the language will be to the T, you know, putting them right where they want to be. So you have to look at what they wrote and what they said. And as I shared in our research and understanding and communications, an Indian not taxed is going to be an American Indian, Aborigine, who has maintained tribal citizenship in a foreign nation, their tribe, and who has been acknowledged in treaties and things of that nature. Now, treaties, that's not just treaties with the U.S., that's treaties with England, the Dutch, Spain. Are you acknowledged in treaties? Where your people mentioned? You know, we look at historical documentation. All of these things that substantiate who your people are and what happened to you. And what happened to you. And how are you going to walk into a court of law making a claim that something happened to you and not be able to prove that it specifically happened to you? All of us didn't go on the Trail of Tears. Your people might not have gone on the Trail of Tears. So how can you claim that that affected you? You know? You have to know your story. Your story. You have to know your story. Because you have to be the one to tell it. And you have to be the one to say, no, that's not accurate when they try to tell you the nonsense. Because they'll try to tell you some nonsense. I mean, some straight, pure, grade A nonsense. Where you'll really get upset with these people. And I'm still learning. I'm grateful. You know, I'm a young chief. I'm one of the younger chiefs. They happen to think I speak well, so they let me do a lot of the speaking. But I check in. I got other chiefs from other nations who are older, more experienced in this, in this walk of life. I check in. That's part of it. But all of them have gotten to the point now where we try not to even get upset with the foolishness. We know it's coming. We know they're going to kick some nonsense to us. We just are very clear on who we are and what happened to us. So now we're not arguing the merits of any case. Now the conflict is the process by which we're trying to engage them. And that's nothing but time. We've got plenty of time because we know who we are. And we've taken the proper steps to provide, by the rules that they set up, the protections and safeguards and institutions and entities and persons and all of those fantastic words that they like to use that make it clear that we are not their citizens. We are citizens of our own nations. We predate their presence here, and we don't need them to be our caretakers. We're fine caretaking ourselves. None of that, in the eyes of the law, would matter if I could not substantiate properly and without any opportunity to rebut that I am a Nahiganset from Meshipog and that my bloodlines run through the Congdons, Michaels, Niles, Champlins, Rodmans, and I'm sure there's so many more crosses. All of these lines that are out there. If I could not substantiate that, then nothing of what I'm saying is going to matter. I might beat the system for a bit, but it's going to catch up. It always does. They find you. And they got this new terminology out there, a black identity extremist. That's what a lot of people are going to get hit with when they can't show that their jurisdiction predates the U.S., right? Black identity extremists. Because if you're not in these lands by an Indian tribe, then you got to be in these lands by the U.S. Because the U.S. is the only one that had any other lawful anything to show that they're in these lands. Now, this doesn't count my territories, you know. But they have treaties and things of that nature. Something, they've got an army, they've got a government, you know what I'm saying? And what else predates them besides the Indians? So if you're not here by permission of an Indian tribe, a pre-colonial one, if you're here by something that was made up after the U.S. colonized, then you're subject to the federal jurisdiction because you're going to be foreign to them, right? You're going to be foreign to them. But foreign in what capacity? And if you can't substantiate a pre-colonial connection to this land, well, you're just like a stateless citizen out here. And you're going to get hit with a BIE designation. Now, I'm telling you, like, listen, I'm just shooting it straight at you. You can argue whatever you want. You can say what you want. You know, everyone can have their opinions. But that is what FANA's real belief is, that eventually they're going to hit people with a BIE and start giving them federal years because they're claiming to be foreign, not under the Constitution of the U.S. or whatever the case may be, but not in a status that predates it. Therefore, they're inferior to it, their claims to this land, and it's going to catch up. It's going to catch up. So lawfully, it is necessary that if you want that pre-colonial American Aborigine Indian not tax status, you need to be able to tie back to specific lands before the U.S. started colonizing. The fourth one, and I think that this one is so key, right? Because I was talking with the brother Tomahawk Tony, and there's so many individuals out there preying on the ignorance of our people. Because we don't know, they're trying to get us, and they're selling us everything. Selling us anything. Giving us, I like to say, 85% truth, and then the 15% is the part that gets you, right? So, the fourth is that it is beneficial for you to tie back and to get with your family. Because how else do you know who's who in your circle? How else do you know who's really who? Right? How else do you know your family? That's why a lot of us don't want to talk to them. Because we know them. We know how they are, right? What better way to protect your tribe than by dealing with the people who you know how they are? Because when you create these pan-Aboriginal institutions and try to call them nations, not only is it not culturally appropriate, not only is it not historically accurate, not only is it not lawfully necessary, substantiated, it's not lawfully substantiated, but you open up the door to be infiltrated by people telling you whatever. Whatever. They'll tell you whatever to get in your good graces, to find out what you know, to use it against you. COINTELPRO. They do it. We've all read, we saw how the civil rights movement got infiltrated. We saw how the Black Panthers got infiltrated. We saw how all of these movements got infiltrated, these pan movements. Around color, most of them. What better or more effective way to ensure that your tribe, your blood, your heritage is protected than if they have to have a bloodline connection to you and to these lands so you know who they are, at least somewhat. Now, of course, there's always room for deceit, but you're starting from a much better place when you can substantiate that these people are from you, because someone probably knows someone and can tell you something about someone. You know? When the clans come together, 4 of the clans I'm blood related to. 3 of them, I'm sorry. 4 of the clans in Mashipag I'm blood related to, but they're not my clan. I'm Wushuwunoag, which is Hawk. That's in particular the Watson line. You got a Williams line, and you got 2 Johnson lines, because it was 2 brothers and 2 sisters, different clans, all different family lines. But then we got another one who we're blood related to. So we know our family's been knowing each other for years. And then the 1 or 2 others that I'm not blood related to still know all their people, Because the Indians stuck with each other. Through all of this classification nonsense, the Indians stuck with each other. So it is beneficial for you, for all of the reasons that I previously stated, plus also to protect yourself. And I give you a real life example. Very good friends with Chief Wampanoag and Wampatuck from the Matakeesit, Massachusetts tribe. In the lands that you now all think are Massachusetts. That's named after the nation that was there. And he and I were conversing the other day, and he mentioned that this individual had reached out to him to enroll in his tribe. And the name rung a bell. So I said, wait a minute. I think that individual reached... Lo and behold, the same individual is reaching out to both of our tribes to try to get enrolled. Now, if we aren't talking because we've known each other before all of this was going on, if we aren't talking, if we aren't engaging, if we aren't connecting, sharing that info, and then having standards, because how are you going to be? Imagine if we was just imagine if I was just a representative of a pan-Aboriginal org. He's in. This individual's in, but right now I can tell, since he's trying to jump in both, and he gave some false credentials, I do believe, the bloodline connection's not there, so you're lying, and there's something funny going on already. There's already something funny going on. Already there's something funny going on. There's already something funny going on, because you can't substantiate the bloodline connection, but you tried to and said you could. So why would you lie like that? Why would you deceive? What else is in your spirit? What else is in your mind? What is going to be in your actions? And you're not my tribe, so I don't have to deal with you. You see the benefit for protection's purposes? Now beyond that, it forces you to get back with your family. People, we need to be back making amends with our family. It's good for us. Let me ask y'all a question. When's the last time you went and sat with your grandmother, with your great aunts, with your older cousins, with the elders from your people, and just picked their brain about what they went through? Because most of us are out turning up, working 70 hours a week to get the next newest thing, and all for what? All for what? So you can show off to other people that are doing just as bad or worse as you are? Because none of us, some of us are, but most of us ain't doing good. And once again, that's not bad mouth and down talking, that's just being honest. Most of us ain't doing good. So who are we trying to show off for? Get back to your family. Spend some time with your little people, with your little ones. Instead of going out and turning up, sit at home, read some books with them. Take them to the park. Teach them about what happened to them, about them being misclassified, so that they can start to do their own research. These young people is on it, I'm telling you. Reach out to them. Spend some time with them. Spend some time with your elders. Bring your family back together. Because that's what we were before all of this. And why would we not want to get back to that? I understand things have happened, right? But why would we not want to get back to having strong ties with our blood-related family members around something that's cultural, historical, and lawful? Why wouldn't you want to do that? So the fourth point is that it's beneficial. It's beneficial for us to be pursuing what we are prescribed, identifying who your people are, where you're from, and what happened to you in a pre-colonial heritage. And the truth of the matter is, and I heard some other brothers speaking about this as well, some of us are descendants of those people who sold their indigenous folks out. Some of us are descendants of people who were enslaved Africans that were brought here. The truth is the truth. That doesn't mean that because that's a truth for you, you can't be a part of making amends and making a better future. But if you can't start from the place of honesty and truth with yourself and about who you are, how can I trust that our future is going to be what it's supposed to be? You see what's going on around us? You got people selling nationality packets. To what nation? Telling you you're going to be a sovereign. Yeah, you're going to be outside the jurisdiction. You're going to be outside of federal protection, and you're going to be outside of indigenous protection because you're not pre-colonial, so you're coming after, and they're going to BIE you. You're going to get BIE'd. But you don't have to take my word for it. I'm just telling you what we've come across and what our understanding is on these things. So those are the 4 reasons why it is in your interest and it's logical. It's logical to move in the manner that we're prescribing as FANA. And it's why it's logical for the reason why that's only who we engage with. We need to know who you are before we start telling you anything. Because there's crazy people out here who are trying to they've been doing it. Do you think they like the fact that we figured a few things out? Do you think they're not still trying to figure out how to trip us up? Have we not learned from our history? Because we're studying all this history, right? Have we not learned from what just happened 40, 50 years ago? We're just going to go do the same thing again under a different name. Pre-colonial. When you reach out, if you reach out to me, don't reach out to me and ask me if I can tell you who you are. You won't even get a response from me. You're clearly not ready to self-identify if you don't even know who you are. And why haven't you gone and spoken to your elders, to your people to find out who you are? Look at it from my shoes. Before you go and ask your own people who you are, you come and ask some stranger? Nah. Don't reach out to any traditional Indian who knows and ask them if they can tell you who you are. You go and find out who you are. Then you come and tell me who you are. And then I can tell you if I can help. And if I tell you I can't help, it's because I can't help. So please, don't try to get into a back and forth. I'm just telling you what it is. And I got enough respect for our people to do just that. To just tell you how it is. To not try to sweeten it up. To not try to throw a little flavor or pizzazz in there. Not try to wow you. Just to tell you straight up what it is. Because I appreciated it in life when that's what people have done for me. Just told me what it is. So I can deal with it correctly. Family, thank you as always for taking the time to just engage my pontifications. I'm just going off the head, just doing some rambling, but felt it was important to follow up with that. The last video was about the necessity of it. This is about the logic of it. It's culturally appropriate. It's historically accurate. It's lawfully, I don't even know, but it's lawful. And it's beneficial, especially in terms of protecting against infiltration and destruction from people who have your worst interest in mind. Much encouragement to you all. Hope you all out there digging in them crates, finding out what that information is, knowing who you are, because it's good to know who you are, and moving accordingly. And I do hope, as time progresses, that I'll be meeting a lot more people who actually know who they are, because it's always a good thing to meet new people and learn about who they are. Katapatush wuchi achusuta nitampag. Kapish kanash. Thank you for listening, friends. I look forward to seeing you all soon. Aho.